Welcome back, everybody, for another deep dive. Today, we're going to be looking at, I guess you could say it's a pretty deep topic. We're going to be exploring The Matrix. And no, not the Keanu Reeves movie, but this idea that we might be living in a world with limitations that we don't even know exist. We're working from one source for this deep dive. And I think you'll agree by the end of it that it really does make you see the world a bit differently.
Yeah, it offers a really interesting perspective on those sort of invisible barriers that we all bump up against in life. And it's not some kind of like sci-fi overlord situation. It's more about how these everyday things, the expectations that society has for us, the media we consume, they can all sort of nudge us down a particular path in life. And it can feel like we're on autopilot sometimes.
Totally. In fact, the source uses this really interesting example, a perfume ad. And it's not just trying to sell you a nice smell, it's selling you an image, like success, attractiveness, maybe even a sense of belonging. Like if you buy this perfume, you'll get all these things. But do we ever actually stop to ask ourselves, do we even want these things? Or is it just something that's been programmed into us?
I think that's the key here. It's the programming. The source is really arguing that the Matrix, it thrives on us just accepting these prepackaged desires as if they were our own. And it's everywhere you look, not just advertising. Think about the news. A lot of times it seems like it's just focused on what's going wrong in the world, which can make us all feel anxious, powerless even. And that's a really good breeding ground for this idea of the Matrix. Because when we're afraid, we're more likely to just cling to any solution that's offered, even if they aren't really solutions at all.
Yeah, it makes you think about those times in your life when you felt pressured to take a certain job. Not because you were actually interested in it or anything, but because it was what successful people do, quote unquote. Was I actually making a choice? Or was I just playing a role that had been assigned to me by the Matrix? How do we even begin to untangle something like that?
Well, the first step, I think, is just recognizing that the Matrix exists in the first place. And a big part of that is simply questioning everything. Like, why do we work the jobs we work? Why do we buy the things we buy? Are we truly happy? Or are we just chasing someone else's definition of happiness? And that's actually where the source suggests something really interesting. It talks about turning to nature as a sort of reset button.
Okay, nature. I mean, I can get behind that. I always feel so much more clear-headed after a good hike or something. But can a walk in the park really dismantle this whole concept of the Matrix?
Well, it's not really about literally dismantling anything. It's more about kind of shifting our perspective. The source talks about all the sensory experiences that come with spending time in nature, you know, like the feel of grass under your feet, the sound of wind in the trees. And it argues that those experiences, they help to ground us in the present moment, outside of the fabricated reality that the Matrix tries to create for us.
It's like nature gives us just a glimpse of what it could be like to exist without all that mental noise all the time.
Yeah.
But how do we bring that feeling back with us into the so-called real world? It's not like we can all just become hermits and live in the woods.
Right, and that's where authenticity comes into play. The source really emphasizes the importance of living in alignment with our true values, even when they don't exactly line up with what the Matrix is telling us to do. It's about making choices that feel right for us, and not for some image that we're trying to project to the outside world.
I have a feeling there's a but coming, because that sounds incredibly difficult. What if being your true authentic self means making choices that disappoint people, or going against what society expects of you? That takes some serious courage.
Yeah, and the source doesn't try to pretend it's easy either. There's actually a quote from Nietzsche in here. "No price is too high to pay for the privilege of owning yourself." Pretty intense, right? But it does make you think about all those times you've kind of just played it safe, gone along with what everyone expected of you, and ended up feeling, well, kind of empty, like you were living someone else's life.
I think that feeling of emptiness is actually a really important clue. It's a sign that we're not really aligned with our true selves. And the source is suggesting that every time we choose authenticity, even in small ways, it's like we're chipping away at the walls of the Matrix. We're taking back our power little by little.
So it's kind of rebellion in a way. But how do we even know where to start with something like that? It's not like the Matrix gives us a rule book or anything. Yeah, it's definitely more about cultivating a certain mindset. The source calls it critical thinking. And it's basically just questioning all the narratives that we're constantly being fed. Like, let's say you're feeling stuck in a job. Maybe it pays well, but it just drains your soul. The Matrix might tell you to just suck it up. You know, a steady paycheck is all that matters. But critical thinking would say, okay, hold on a second. What are your values? What really motivates you? Maybe that dream job that everyone's chasing. Maybe it isn't actually your dream at all.
So it's about really understanding the why. behind our choices instead of just going through the motions. Which reminds me of something else the Source mentions that I thought was kind of interesting, this idea of tuning into higher frequencies. Can you maybe explain what that means?
Yeah, it sounds a little bit out there, I know. But basically, the Source is saying that emotions operate on different frequencies, kind of like a radio dial. So you've got fear, anger, anxiety. Those are like a low frequency stations. They keep us feeling trapped, reactive, constantly on edge.
Yeah, I've definitely tuned into those stations a few times. Not exactly the best music.
Exactly. And the Source argues that the Matrix actually thrives on those low frequencies. It wants us to stay tuned in to that fear and anxiety because it's a lot easier to control a population that's afraid.
Okay, so if those are the low frequencies, what are the higher ones? And how do we even find them on this metaphorical radio dial?
Well, think about emotions like love, joy, gratitude, peace. Those vibrate at a much higher frequency. And here's the really interesting part. The Source is saying that those emotions, they aren't just some kind of feel-good fluff. They actually have the power to weaken the Matrix's hold on us.
Because when we're feeling joyful and connected and all that, we're less likely to buy into those fear-based narratives. Like we're literally vibrating at a level that the Matrix just can't reach.
That's the idea. It's not about pretending that negative emotions don't exist. It's about making a conscious choice to focus on the positive. And the more we do that, the more we can actually shift our entire internal landscape. We become less reactive, more discerning, more aligned with our true selves.
Okay, I like where this is going. But how do we actually do that? Life throws a lot of curveballs our way. How do we cultivate those higher frequencies when it feels like everything around us is chaotic and stressful?
Yeah, it's definitely an ongoing practice. It's not a one-time fix or anything. It's about becoming more mindful of our thoughts and our emotions and using tools like meditation or gratitude practices, or even just spending time in nature to kind of help us recalibrate.
So it's almost like we're building a mental muscle. The more we exercise that muscle, the easier it becomes to tune into those higher frequencies.
Exactly. And eventually it becomes less about forcing it and more about remembering what it feels like to be in that state of peace and joy. And the Source makes a really powerful point here. This isn't just about individual liberation. It's about creating a ripple effect.
Okay, ripple effect. I'm intrigued. How does my personal quest to tune into higher frequencies actually impact the world around me?
Well, the Source is arguing that when we embody those higher frequencies, like love, compassion, understanding, we actually radiate that energy outwards. Like we become walking antidotes to the fear and negativity that the Matrix feeds on. And that can have a really profound impact on the people around us, even if we don't realize it.
So by raising our own vibration, we're kind of raising the collective vibration of everyone around us.
Exactly. It's about shifting the balance of power one conscious choice at a time. And that's where the Source gets really practical. It actually offers some advice for anyone who's ready to step out of the Matrix and into a more authentic way of being.
Okay, I'm all ears. What are these practical steps? Where do we even begin? Yeah, because it's easy to get all fired up about this stuff, you know? And then life happens. We get busy. We slip right back into our old habits. So what can we actually do? Like, what are some tangible things to make sure we stay on this path of unplugging from the Matrix, I guess you could say?
Well, the Source really emphasizes a few key practices. Yeah. And the first one is that nature connection we were just talking about. Make it a point to actually get outside regularly. Even if it's just for like 5 minutes every day, just step outside, feel the sun on your skin, listen to the birds, notice all the little things happening around you. It's about grounding yourself in the present moment and remembering that you're part of something much bigger than yourself.
I know for me, when I'm out in nature, all those worries that feel so huge when I'm stuck in my head, they just seem to kind of melt away. It's like getting a fresh perspective on everything.
Exactly. And another practice is to start cultivating more authenticity in your everyday life. And you don't have to make any big drastic changes or anything. Just start small. Maybe it's wearing that outfit that you absolutely love, but you've always been a little bit afraid to wear it out in public. Or maybe it's speaking up in a meeting when you have an idea, even if you're a little bit nervous to share it. Or sometimes it can be as simple as just saying no to something you really don't want to do.
So it's about those little acts of rebellion against all those shoulds, all those rules that we've internalized from the Matrix without even realizing it.
Exactly. And every time you make that choice, every time you choose authenticity, it gets a little bit easier the next time. You're strengthening that muscle.
I love that.
Yeah.
Okay, so we've talked about nature. We've talked about authenticity. What about critical thinking? How do we make that a regular practice instead of just something we do when we're feeling stuck?
Well, I think a big part of it is cultivating a healthy sense of skepticism. Question everything, especially the information that you're consuming. Look for hidden motives. Look for biases. Don't just take things at face value. The more you do that, the more discerning you become, and the less likely you are to fall prey to the Matrix's manipulation tactics.
So it's about becoming like a conscious consumer of information, instead of just passively absorbing whatever's thrown at us.
Exactly. And then finally, there's the whole practice of cultivating those higher frequencies we were talking about. And that's where things like meditation and gratitude practices can be really helpful. But it doesn't have to be anything complicated. Sometimes it's as simple as just making a conscious effort to focus on the good things in your life. Notice the things you're grateful for. Spend time with people who make you feel good. Do things that bring you joy.
So it's about creating an internal environment that's really supportive of growth and expansion, which in turn makes us less susceptible to those low frequencies that keep us feeling trapped.
Exactly. And the source makes a really important point here. It's not about being perfect. It's about progress. There are going to be times when you slip up, when you fall back into old patterns, when you get triggered, when you forget your power. And that's okay. It's all part of the process.
So self-compassion is key. Don't beat yourself up when you inevitably stumble.
Exactly. Just acknowledge it, learn from it, and keep moving forward. And remember, you're not alone in this. There are so many people out there who are waking up, questioning the status quo, choosing to live more consciously and authentically.
Like a collective awakening, a movement towards something.
Yeah.
More real, more connected, more free.
Exactly. And the more we embrace our own authenticity, the more we inspire others to do the same. It's like a ripple effect that has the power to transform the world.
I love that. Well, this has been such an amazing deep dive. But I have to admit, I'm still feeling a little bit overwhelmed. Like the matrix is so vast, so pervasive. How can one person, possibly make a difference?
I hear you. It can definitely feel daunting. But here's the thing. You don't have to try to dismantle the entire system overnight. Just focus on your own personal liberation. Focus on making choices that are aligned with your true self. Focus on cultivating those higher frequencies. The ripple effect will take care of itself.
So it's not about making these grand gestures. It's about those small, consistent actions that we take every day.
Exactly. The daily choices, the subtle shifts in perspective, those little moments of awareness, they all add up over time, and they gradually start to erode the walls of the matrix.
And as we do that, we reclaim our power, our freedom, our ability to create a life that's truly our own.
And that's a life worth fighting for.
I think this deep dive has given us a lot to think about. But before we go, I'd love to leave our listeners with a question. What's one small step you can take today to break free from the matrix and step more fully into your authentic self?
It can be anything. Spend 5 minutes in nature. Wear that bold outfit you've been wanting to wear. Say no to something you really don't want to do. Write down 3 things you're grateful for. The choice is yours.
The power is yours.
Just remember, you're not a program. You're a powerful creator, and the world is waiting to see what you create.
Thanks for joining us for this deep dive into the matrix. We hope it sparked something in you, a desire to question, to explore, to break free.
And until next time, keep diving deep and keep shining your light.